thank you for joining us today. In today's discussion, we will be focusing on a topic that deeply is important to us, but not always easy to talk about: how to have a conversation about mental health with Arab parents. In many Arab families, mental health can still feel like a taboo subject, and opening up about emotions or seeking therapy can sometimes be misunderstood. I am honored to have Maliha with us today, who will be sharing insight on this topic. To start off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey?
Sure, sure. How much do you want to know? That's my first question. When someone asks me that, I ask them that question. Well, how much do you want to know?
However much you would like to say.
Okay, I love it. I love it when I get that response. So I'm Maliha. I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Texas. I'm also an adjunct professor at the University of St. Thomas in Houston, Texas. And a little bit about my journey. I'm actually from Pakistan. I immigrated here when I was 10 years old. I turned 10 when I came to the US. That was an adjustment, of course, trying to navigate things post 9/11. It was very challenging to have that experience. There was a lot of racism, a lot of, I would say, bullying in school for being Muslim. I went to a predominantly white school, and it was an adjustment to navigate really. But all of those experiences in my life and everything that I've seen my own family go through has really informed the work that I do. So I really appreciate that we're talking to Arab parents about mental health, because I really value generational health and family health, and it's something I'm very passionate about. So I'm excited to be here with you guys.
Starting off with some questions, how can someone start a conversation about mental health with their parents if it feels like a taboo topic?
Yeah, so with any kind of conversation that might be a difficult one to talk to with anyone, right? If we are in a relationship with someone or we have a connection or friendship, it can be difficult to talk about certain topics. And in this particular case, talking to our Arab parents about mental health can be challenging. It's not something that they're used to. So most of us are coming in with a lot of anxiety, a lot of questions. How do I do this? So one of the first places I would encourage people to kind of start off with is to know what's happening within your body when you are about to go into a conversation like that, and then also know what's happening within your parents' bodies. And what I really want people to be mindful of is our body's stress response. And I can share a little bit about that. Some people might be familiar with this idea because it's very much trending on social media, I want to say. But for those who don't know, when we are faced with any type of stressor, our bodies have a very automatic, very necessary and adaptive response to that stress. And immediately within the split second, our bodies go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode. Some of us might be stuck in those modes for some time and then just operating from that place. And that's a way of us surviving our circumstances or surviving that stressful situation. And just like we have that happening within us, so do our parents when we're talking about stressful things or when they're facing any type of stressor, honestly. So we want to keep that in mind before we go into that conversation, because we want to create safety in talking about something that can be challenging. And that way we are more likely to have a healthier conversation with them. It's likely to go in a positive direction. We're more likely to have a better outcome with that. There's a wonderful book. I want to show it here. I keep it on my desk because I often refer to it. It's called Break the Cycle, A Guide to Healing Intergenerational Trauma. It's by Dr. Marielle Bouquet. She's on Instagram if anyone wants to follow her work. She does really great stuff. She has talked to different immigrant communities about navigating generational health and working through traumatic experiences that they may have been through. She talks about this concept of the intergenerational nervous system. And I can share a little bit more about that if if you want to go there.
Yeah, I mean, feel free.
Okay. So again, just like we have our nervous system, so does everybody else that we live with in our home, right? So an example could be that, let's say there's a person named Sarah. Sarah comes to therapy and she says, hey, I feel really triggered by my family, or I don't want to talk to my parents about stressful things because it's really difficult. Maybe they get upset, or maybe I get upset and I don't know how to navigate it. So I avoid that situation. Right. So we might see when we dig deeper, and this is an example that comes from her book, this book, Break the Cycle. We might see that Sarah has grown up seeing her grandmother and her mother arguing with each other, fighting quite a lot. So that's them being stuck in that fight mode. And then when Sarah sees that, she goes into rescue. She might feel like, hey, I need to create peace and harmony in my family system. I need to make sure mom's calm. I need to make sure grandma's calm. That is her in the fawn mode. And then her dad might just be completely disconnected. He might shut down. He might go isolate himself. That might be him in flight mode. So we can see how one event, just two people arguing with each other, affect everybody within that family system, right? So when we are going to talk to our parents about this topic, we want to really assess, what is the way that I show up when I'm stressed out? What are the ways that my parents show up when they're stressed out? And then we take care of that. If we are able to regulate our bodies, do something like deep breathing, or maybe take a walk before doing something stressful, we will be able to communicate more effectively. And then if we see, hey, my parents are getting elevated, or they're, about to get really upset with me, maybe we put a pause on that conversation and we come back to it when we feel more ready.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. In your experience, how do Arab culture or religion value influence the way parents see mental health or therapy?
So both of those avenues are really support systems within the Arab community, both the religious values, both cultural values. And when those support systems don't work, it can be very disorienting for parents. They feel very confused by it because historically, that's how they have sought out support, right? So if my kid is struggling, they might think, hey, maybe in some ways their faith has failed them. Or if my kid is struggling with their mental health, then maybe I as a parent have failed them. And that particular one can be quite difficult for parents to sit with or navigate even. It might not be, we're not saying everything is our parents' fault, right? Our parents might have some part to do in how we show up in our lives and, the ways that they've parented us. But sometimes for parents, they can really take that on themselves. Like, hey, I messed up somewhere, which is why my kid is struggling with anxiety or depression. And then, of course, we have that idea of the honor of the family system, right? We have this a certain type of image that we have to kind of show to people. There's that expectation of us being a reflection of our family. So if someone finds out that my kid is going to therapy or that maybe they're going through depression, what are people going to think? What are they going to say? Those are some of the things that kind of come up within the art community.
What are some misunderstandings do you often hear from parents when their child talks about getting counseling or therapy?
So a common one that I often come across is this idea of pushing through. It's no secret, and Arabs know that our parents have gone through a lot of difficult things, right? People might have experienced, their parents might have experienced war or displacement or financial hardship or migrating to another country, adjusting as a marginalized community, having that identity, that facing racism. And parents have done that without the support of therapy. So if anyone in their minds, if anyone should be struggling, it should be them. And if they're not struggling, then why are you struggling? What reason could you have for having this struggle? And that can be something that is really hard for them to kind of grapple with because there's such a strong emphasis on resilience. And it really truly has helped them survive their circumstances. They expect that of their children. They might say it, or they might not say it, but they might expect it. And we might have picked up on those things based on what they may have said about other people or the ways that they speak about themselves or how they talk about difficulties or maybe not even talk about difficulties. All of that can kind of create this idea that, hey, I should be able to handle this and I should be able to push through and pick myself up by my bootstraps almost, and carry on with life.
Mhm.
Another one I want to mention here, this comes up quite often, is that you should pray more, that you should eat more nutritious foods, or you should exercise more. And if you sleep more, then you're not going to have panic attacks. And I'm not going to sit here and say that those avenues of support are not helpful. Of course they are, right? Holistic care is the way to go. And a good therapist will talk to you about those kind of things and help you address all of those areas of your life. At the same time, some of us might need more support than that. It's like having a headache and we might need medication to navigate that. Or let's say we get sick, we might need medicine to help us feel better. But then in reality, some Arab parents, like a lot of immigrant parents, really don't go to the doctor or they don't want to take medicine because that can happen too, right? They want to fight it off with herbal medication or herbal medicine or herbal means. And I'm not saying that those are not helpful. Of course, they have their benefit. And at the same time, we might need more support than that.
What are some ways to bridge the gap between older parents' views on mental health and younger people, like how younger people think about it?
So, one of the things that I would say is when you're opening up that conversation, use bridging language, use language that is grounded in respect and gratitude. Parents love it in general when we really butter them up and we tell them how much we appreciate them. So, maybe saying something like, I I know that you really care about me, and I know that you want what's best for me, and I know that you want me to excel in X area of my life, right? And therapy could be one way that I can do that. Maybe it's you want me to communicate better with you. Therapy can help me with that. Or you want me to make better grades. Therapy can help me do that. Or you want me to sleep better. Or you want me to get that promotion at work. Or you want me to get married. Therapy can help me navigate those areas. Parents might respond better to action-based improvement rather than emotional improvement. They can't see what's happening within our bodies, right? Or in our minds. So even if we are finding improvement through therapy or mental health support or even learning about mental health, they can't see the internal change. They can more easily see that external change. So maybe linking it to that, that can be helpful for them. And then, of course, we want to find resources that they resonate with. So if our parents, gravitate towards understanding things in Arabic, then maybe YouTubing um, clinicians on on mental health who talk about mental health, depression, anxiety, or various different topics, and they explain that stuff in Arabic. That can be very helpful. And I actually do this for some of my clients. If they ask me like, hey, Maliha, can you send me resources that I can send to my parents? I will go on YouTube and I'll try to find things that might be within their native language that can be helpful for people to understand. Or if, let's say, they reach out to religious organizations or different scholars or clergy members, finding information about mental health through those avenues can, again, be a lower barrier to entry for our parents.
Mhm. Are there any resources you recommend that help parents feel more open about mental health discussions?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, going on YouTube, having resources within, our native language can be helpful. Different organizations that or particular leaders that that your parents look up to and they value them and they value getting advice from them. Those can be helpful areas. This book can be super super helpful. I recommend it to families that I work with. Not everybody will want to read a book, so there is that. you know um, that is a reality. So
Mm-hmm.
if your parents are the kind of people who learn better from YouTube or listening to something, then that's something that could be helpful. If you're looking for your parents are looking for therapists, there's a wonderful online directory called Inclusive Therapists. I can't remember if it's .com or .org, but you're able to find therapists that really work with marginalized communities, talk about racism, that really understand cultural aspect of a person's functioning, and you can filter by what you're seeking. That could be a resource as well. There's an organization, a nonprofit called Arab American Family Support Center. That can be something that your parents can reach out to as well. And then, of course, if they're Muslim, I did try to find, and I can't find this, any religious organizations other than Muslim organizations in regards to mental health. There's an organization called Khalil Center. They provide lots of psychoeducation. They do lots of trainings for Muslims, and they also have therapy services. And then there's Nasiha Mental Health. That's the first Islam-inspired crisis hotline for North America. That can be another avenue of support. All of these resources have their own like videos of psychoeducation that you can again share with your parents. That could be an avenue that your parents kind of explore.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your insight and being with us today. Before we end, is there any final quote or message you'd like to share?
So I want to say two things before we go. One is that this is a journey. It's not a one and done type of a process. It's going to take time. When we are opening up these conversations about mental health, we are changing the family dynamics that have existed probably in our family for generations. So it's going to be something that takes a lot of time. It's almost like having that conversation with your parents, that's you planting the seed. Then maybe next time you share an article with them, That's you watering that seed. Then maybe a month goes by and then you bring up that conversation again. That's you watering that plant again. It's going to take some time for this plant to grow. It's not going to be an immediate thing. I know that most of us are used to kind of this hustle culture, or have this expectation that if, hey, I want something, I want it now. And I told my parents and they didn't understand. It's going to take time for your parents to come around, you know. And the second thing was, some parents won't come around. Unfortunately, that is also the reality, that sometimes for some of us, we might try our best to explain this aspect of our lives to our parents, and they just might not understand or might not be ready to go on that journey with us. And that comes with a lot of grief that can be very difficult to navigate, because we want our parents to really know us in that way, to support us in that way, and yet they can't. So sometimes it is a process that it requires a lot of grieving, and then assessing, like, hey, moving forward, what kind of relationship do I want with my parents given their limitations?